Papoose wants us to talk about name our starting 15 if this 37 is all fit. It's 37, not 36. That's interesting. There's Courtney Law's wild inclusion. I'll just bang one out and you see if you disagree just off the top of my head. What are our loose head options? It's Sutherland, Mako, and who was the other one?
It was
Wyn Jones.
Wyn Jones.
For scrummaging acumen, I go Sutherland. Then I go George 100%, Furlong 100%. Alan Wynne and Itoje.
There's so many big locks to choose from.
This is the thing. I think different starting 15s for each game is going to make sense because there's such talent. But we'll say for now, why don't we say Biggie and Henderson, Alan Wynne, Itoje at 6, Tipperick at 7, and
Burn on the bench to come on.
Faletau at 8, except Conan might take that jersey off him if he plays unreal, and that would be unreal to see. And then Tyg Byrne or maybe Sam Simmons on the bench, depending on form. Then your back line is, I think Gareth Davis to start. What was I saying? Bigger than centres, Farrell and Henshaw. Back 3. Hogg at fullback. I'll go Liam Williams on the left wing and Rees on the right. Yeah, that's my starting 15.
Yeah, it's not a tough one to disagree, or it's a tough one to disagree with. I don't know if Sutherland's struggling with fitness, then maybe you'd put Wyn Jones perhaps in, who's been the form guy of those 3. To be honest, he's been the form guy. But I would worry most about his scrummaging against these Springboks. I don't know how that matchup will go for him yet. We haven't really seen it yet for him, but he was awesome in the Six Nations. If he can bring that kind of hustling form and menace at the break.
Yeah, and just the carry game, the work rate, all of that's class. David Farrell has been in. He just wants us to touch base on a couple of Irish ones. Aki's inclusion,
awesome for him.
I'm delighted for him. I think he is a class character, and I definitely think that helped him. It is a bit of a wild call. He hasn't been playing any test rugby. He hasn't been in great form.
It's been Tom Daly for Connacht most of the times that I've been watching this season. He hasn't really played that many.
He's been
games.
on the sideline cheering them on, as he will be on testing.
Maybe that's the value. It's like what you do see some of those, actually, like Bongi and Banambi for the Springboks. He was on the bench all tournament long, giving great face.
I definitely am delighted for him, and I think he is quality as well. Like the centres were so open, nobody was that convincing.
No,
Slade over Daly over Slade, I think is. I understand it because of all the tools in his box.
It was blown wide open when George North went limping off in that Rainbow Cup game as well, because he was the only one that I was certain was himself and Henshaw.
He would have been the plan.
North. I was looking at a Henshaw North combination in the outset, but then North
and arguably Farrell Henshaw has a better balance to it. But I like gutted for George North obviously, but that did blow the centres wide open. And Bundy is as good value as anyone on his day. He's fantastic, really competitive. David's just asking, did I miss your comments on Ryan and Sexton? Well, we kind of like Sexton. We did talk about a bit, and we were saying like basically his he was unlucky just because of the nuts and bolts of the squad. His form is excellent. Injury came at a bad time. Bigger's form is off the chain, and you got to bring Russell for the X factor, and you got to bring Faz for 12 potential, and then you've just only got so many you can choose from.
That's it.
So it was unlucky, but James Ryan
less so. I was delighted for Biggie and Henderson because he's outplayed James Ryan in every match this year, and Ryan hasn't had a run of games. He's been in and out with injury, and to be honest, he hasn't been wholly impressive when he's been back there. He's been awesome for the last few years, but like even going back to that Autumn Nations Cup game against England, he got absolutely monstered by Itoje. Every single play was a losing one from him, and you haven't seen him be the indomitable force that we saw from him in the last couple of seasons. So it's just a form thing, and there are a lot of he's picked so many big locks that it was always going to be tough to get in if you're just a specialist lock. Yeah,
and to be honest, like Ryan just hasn't been the enforcer that we thought he might be. Like he had that great run in 2018 where he was getting loads of wins, but he hasn't quite kicked on how we might have hoped. Like we would have had him in 2018 when he was bursting onto the scene. We would have had him like, oh, this guy's going to be this like a new Sam Whitelock or Itoje. He's going to be our answer to Itoje. And he's lost virtually all of those battles over the last couple of years. He hasn't really got the the dexterity, the ball playing. He's very, like, when you put him in a screen, he trucks it up 90% of the time, and he does usually go forward, but it's kind of slow. And he is, like, you're starting to see there are bigger guys than him. Will Skelton completely monstered him at the weekend.
That's right.
Like, there are bigger guys than him, and he hasn't really added the extra tools to his game. He doesn't call lineouts for Ireland. Like, those things counted against him. And while I do like him, I think he has another level to go before he can get to the real top that we thought he was going to be at a couple of years back. And Biggie and Henderson has been flying for him.
Awesome. Yeah. Just one of the comments there, I see Nick Garrity saying, what clues to the selections or omissions give to the likely game plan? Yeah, I think we were alluding to this before, like the type 5 and the selection of a load of locks who can dual wield and go in the back row means that, the scrum and set piece are a big focus for locking down. But then some of the pace in the back row and the fact that Faz is there who can flip to 12 leads me to believe that they're going to try and move it about a bit. They have Murray as the kicking option as well, but they're going to try and use some of those back row carriers and stuff out a little wider from the contact, try and get outside, find the edges against the Springboks. Don't compete with their tight defence if you don't have to. Try and move them about. Yeah,
exactly. Trying to match them up front is definitely huge. As you say, there's a load of forwards in there, a load of versatile options. You could see 3 locks selected. There's potential to just select a massive side that isn't going to be scrummed off the ball. But then the few ball playing back rowers are really exciting, and you're going to look to see those guys getting in the wide channels. Like Conan lives in the wide channels, loves it. Falatau the same, Tipperick the same, Sam Simmons the same. Like, there's 4 guys right there who can be really explosive in the wide channels. And then you have a bunch of guys who can play really tight rugby. A 6-2 split on the bench is something that wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, that's true too. Especially if you have guys in the starting team who can play either position and stuff.
And Courtney Laws, is an interesting one as well. Like, he's very much, he strikes me as just an extra guy because he's tough, and because they're a bit paranoid about, not being able to bring extra guys on tour and how difficult that might prove. And Laws is just a tough guy who'll slot in anywhere if someone goes down injured. So I definitely value that selection as well. But size in the tight is definitely
Johnny Hill, as Dave Farrell saying, Johnny Hill, whose form has been sketchy, but he is just a big man mountain of a man, and therefore he's going. So there's definitely you fear getting blown away by the Springboks' power. Of course you do. So in the type 5 especially, you want that heft. The surprise exclusion we were saying in that type 5 in the context is definitely Kyle Sinclair, because the ball playing forwards and his scrummaging acumen, you definitely want to see him there. Like, unlike all the other English props, we haven't seen him yet get monstered by the Springboks, because he went down in 2 minutes after that in that World Cup final with an injury. So we didn't really see how that matchup works. But he's the one that I would be surprised in terms of missing out. But the rest are there for heft reasons. In the type 5 especially, they want to match them there, do the fundamental job of trying to get your set piece right. And then you have guys like Price, who Essand is saying delighted for, nippy scrum half, going to try and move them about.
If he gets his form, he needs to maintain tempo. Like, one of the things that really irked me about Scotland in the Six Nations was just in moments they kind of mismanaged games. They looked a bit tired sometimes and slowed down. I think that Wales just at the wrong time slowing up. Like, Price needs to dominate. He needs to be the big personality who needs to move the ball constantly. And at his best, he's very free-flowing, and his highlight reel looks great. But then there's just moments in games when everything slows up and he's just kind of walking and he's lethargic. And then you can kind of get caught.
Sometimes him not minding the hill at the base of the maul, those kinds of little plays, which actually Gareth Davies can be guilty of as well. When the ball's in the maul, if you're going to maul it, scrum half, try and keep your hands and eyes on it. Like, please stop.
That's the funny thing about it back from all. Like, I've seen Ali Price do that constantly, like, where he's exchanging words with his 10, and then, like, the ball looks fine, it looks like it's there, and then
it only takes a second it's for a big telescopic Springbok arm to get his hands on it, and then it's done.
The nuts and bolts of his game do need a bit of work, but by and large, I think he's a quality player. And always got the potential to shine. And he wasn't one that we would have picked, but I think I said at the end of last week's show, if he does get picked, he could be class.
Could definitely make the test team. There's a lot of jerseys are still open on that test team, because there's a lot of quality just to pick from. It's a really tightly packed 37-man squad. With all good players in it, to be honest.
Starleo saying that likes the Laws pick quite a bit. Obviously, I was saying that big for heft. Papu's talking about the 6-2 split being obvious, which you mentioned that, which, obviously the hybrid backs come into play quite a bit there. David Farrell's just coming in saying Conan performance against La Rochelle got him picked. That's an interesting one because I was a little paranoid that he might not have done enough, despite I thought Leinster were kind of shafting him because he wasn't in the wide channels. He wasn't where he needed to be, and we lost the game as consequence.
He was looking a little like Kieran Reid in a losing All Black effort out there, where he's trucking it up one out from the ruck instead of being in the tram lines linking with wingers.
Except every touch was dynamic for him, and what I think got him picked was the combination of his performances against England in the Six Nations coming back, and then Exeter. And the fact that Robin McBride is in the coaching ticket.
I think that is a big factor as well. Leinster forwards coach Robin McBride is on tour. So and to be honest, Gregor Townsend there as well. So we were kind of piecing together. No, the Leinster guys weren't fully shafted, and nor were the Scots.
It's definitely value to it. But yeah, Conan, for me, Leinster have a huge amount of back row stocks. Caelan Darras has come through. Dan Levy, obviously, back in his day.
Josh van der
Fleer, Will Connors, Rhys Ruddock. For me, Conan has the highest ceiling of all of them. At his best, there's nobody quite like him in terms of he can marry physicality with speed and footwork and reads the game really well.
Yeah.
He needed to sort of bulk up and get sort of physically on the level defensively. And there's still scope for him to improve, and I don't know what it looks like if he has to tackle Dwayne Vermeulen. Maybe that's a problem for
curtains,
him. But I definitely excited to see him play. I'm chuffed for him, really.
Yeah.
Gooded for Cian Healy, but chuffed for Jack Conan. Is my main, as a Leinster fan, those are my main emotions.
Yeah, that's a perpetual feeling.
Yeah, everyone's talking about James Ryan and Johnny Sexton. Cian Healy way unluckier to miss out in my book.
To be honest, I think Cian Healy should have been far closer to the reckoning than any of these other lads because his scrummaging's been on another level, and Ryan hasn't really been.
Yeah.
Sexton, we were explaining, there's a rationale that sees him missing out, and it's the one they've explored. I'm curious to see if Rory Sutherland can manage to get back to fitness. I think he should start in one of the early games. I wouldn't even mind seeing him play against Japan if he can at all, because he'll need a run of games to be able to face the Springboks in that job of a loose head scrummager.
Yeah, no question, and it's such an aggressive scrummaging position. And also, I'm just watching, if you're watching any of the South African rugby, Franz Malherbe, I think he's front runner for the tight head spot. Like Thomas du Toit is a freak as well, but Franz Malherbe is really strong, strong. Like good loose heads made look very silly by him, and so there's definitely fear there. Like that's my fear for Wyn Jones, to be honest. He was hustling really well and great in the loose in the Six Nations, and he wasn't
buying
a problem
a few
at the
technical
scrum.
penalties at the scrum. So he certainly got one from Xander, didn't he, at one point where he managed to get Xander to go down, but then once the game drew on, he was kind of holding it together a bit like all that Welsh scrum. So there's definitely risk there because the Springbok scrummaging unit is a different level. Sure, ask England about it in the World Cup final. You can see Dan Cole getting hoisted up into the air. There's danger there. Thank you very much for watching that video. If you're new here, please do like and subscribe and ring the bell so you get notified when we upload again. But mainly, please drop a comment down below. We enjoy hearing your thoughts on it. Thanks.